It was once said that politicians don't see the light until they feel the heat. That's why it's so important for architects to stand up for the issues and values we believe in. Communicating with your legislators is easy, whether by mail, phone, or face-to-face meeting. The more personal, the better. Because the better an elected official knows you, the better your voice will be heard, as an architect and as an AIA member. These contacts not only strengthen the AIA brand, but make it possible to get important things done. The following are 12 simple rules to remember when making a personal visit with lawmakers, whether it's an AIA lobby day in your state or in Washington, D.C. Number 1. Feel good about what you're doing. Constituents visiting legislators is what representative democracy is all about.
Our democracy works if we get involved in it, if we act in it, if we write letters, make phone calls, make visits to our congressional office.
I don't think that anyone should ever fear going to speak to one of their elected representatives, whether it be at the state level or the federal level or the local level.
Members of Congress really are here as agents of their constituents. So not only do members of Congress want their constituents to come visit them in Washington, frankly, their whole office is designed to receive them.
That's what it's all about, that constituents are supposed to talk to their legislators. They're supposed to go see them. They're supposed to explain what their viewpoints are on important issues.
Number 2. Be friendly and respectful, even if you don't ordinarily support a legislator's politics.
The protocol should be the same whether you agree with a member or whether you disagree with a member. You know, the reality is that you're never going to agree with a member on every issue, and frankly, there are very few politicians who can win unless they get support from a broad constituency, including constituents that may have different views from them.
You've got to remember, if you've got an issue that you're passionate about and you know that you disagree with a particular member of Congress on that policy issue, you've got to table that, because you're here to represent yourself, colleagues, and your professional association.
You should be courteous but firm. If the member disagrees, or if the staff says that they disagree with you on an issue, be courteous, but just ask some questions to try to understand more about their position.
You certainly don't want to turn a conversation into a confrontation, but the information that someone cannot or won't support an effort, that's valuable information too, and that information is something to be shared with the AIA Government Affairs staff, so they can use that information to decide where they are going to get support, or perhaps how a compromise could be built.
Number 3. When you meet a public official, create a personal bond right from the start.
They're being approached by a lot of people all the time, so any kind of a personal recollection that you can give them is going to be to your benefit.
It would be good to read their bio before you go in and meet with them, learn about what their interests are, see if you have some common ground or common interests.
Remind them of a meeting that you had last year, issues that you talked about, mention something of importance that's happening back home that that person may be taking a lead on or may be aware of. It's an easy way to break the ice and help create that bond.
If you've got a meeting with a celebrity or somebody who's run for president or somebody you see on the network talk shows, don't worry about it. They're regular folk.
Frankly, that most members like being treated like real people. So the more that you can treat them like a friend or a colleague, obviously still respectful, but the more that you can treat them like an average person, in some ways, the better luck you're going to have.
You just try to deal with them in terms of respecting their office, respecting their views, and discussing with them why an issue or constituency is important to them, why this is something that they should care about.
Number 4. Once initial greetings are completed, explain why you're there. Get to the point quickly.
Meetings can be exceedingly short. Members and staffs have incredibly busy schedules. They have dozens of people they have to meet with every day. The key is to try to establish a rapport quickly, get to your point very quickly.
You also to look at it as an opportunity to either offer to walk with the lawmaker if he has to go over to the floor to vote, or sometimes you can continue the meeting with the staff person. And
I've seen major CEOs limited to 30 seconds and then have to walk with the member to the House floor. So you don't know how long you'll have, so you have to get right to the point quickly. You may have more time to talk after, but get to the point as quickly as you can.
You have to go in there with a plan say hello, go through all the greetings, try to keep it to one sentence, and then really hit them with the point, because you don't know how much time you may or may not have with the congressman or senator.
Number 5, ask your legislator to do something specific, and when you do, be clear and precise.
I think it's important to go into a congressman's office with a priority list in mind and be ready to hit that first priority fairly soon in the conversation so that the congressman really knows what you're there for and what you're really asking him to do.
It's absolutely critical that you communicate to them why you're there. You're there, you want to introduce yourself, you want to build a bond and a relationship, but at the end of the day, you've got to communicate to them why you're there.
Getting a specific commitment is critical. It can be hard to do sometimes, but you're only going to get a specific commitment if you've made a specific ask. So it's very important to, in a concrete way, ask the member to support a particular bill, to support a particular amendment to a bill, whether it's to write a letter to a federal agency, whatever the specific ask is, to make it in a very concrete way.
Number 6, legislators and their staffs are very busy. Use the time effectively.
They're running from one committee meeting to another. Sometimes they have to abruptly leave and do a floor vote or a roll call. Whatever it may be, use the time as carefully as possible.
Because there are so many different people who come in asking different issues, you may get someone who isn't really interested in your issue, or it's not a top priority for the office. Try not to be dissuaded by that. I think it's important to note, because that may mean you have more work ahead of you to do to follow up with them and get them interested.
Number 7, don't overstate your case. Stick to reasonable arguments based on the facts.
It's very important to stick to the facts and not overstate the case. It's important that you're from the district, and it's important that you maintain your credibility.
In lobbying, you don't have anything else as an asset except your reputation. And once you lose that, you're pretty much lost.
It's amazing to me how many people forget that to relate the issue back to their district or back to their state.
The more you can draw your issues, your policy issues, back to your district, your state, the people that these folks serve, the more inclined they are to support you.
Number 8, don't be afraid to express an informed opinion about an issue, even if you're not an expert. Also, don't be afraid to explain your technical credentials if you are, in fact, an expert.
If you're talking to a politician and you've been given an issue that you're really not that comfortable with, it's okay. Politicians don't expect you to know everything. Politicians just want you to represent your interests, talk to them as a constituent, and just speak to it to the amount that you feel comfortable.
What you want to do is present the information that you know, that you can represent yourself and feel good about putting that information forward.
I would never try to wing it. And if you're asked a question you don't know the answer to, tell them, I don't know the answer to that, but I can get back to you.
You have to make it clear that, that you're not being evasive and you're not unwilling to address the question that's been put before you. But on the other hand, you're not going to give them an off-the-wall answer. You're not going to try to make up something as you're going along, but are willing to get them the information that they need.
Get the card of the staff person who you met with. Send them an email or a note, or call them and let them know they asked this, here's the response that they were looking for. If they have other questions, they certainly can contact the AIA representative in Washington, D.C.
If you're going to talk to a legislator and you are an expert, you do have professional expertise, particularly as an architect, you may have specific training or credentials. Feel free to tell them that.
Number 9, listen for an actual commitment of support, not something that may sound like one, but really isn't.
Politicians are very good at leaving you with a good feeling from a meeting without ever saying exactly where they stand on an issue. So you have to ask. If you want them to co-sponsor a bill, ask them, will you co-sponsor H.R. 123? If you want them to vote yes for or against a bill, ask them, politely, but ask them.
And then it's equally important to listen for what the member or staff person says A lot of times they'll give you a very general answer. We'll look into it, or I think that might be something that we can support. Let us look into it. If you can get a specific commitment, that's important. And if you get one, make sure that you understand exactly what that commitment is, that you thank them for it, and that you write it down so that when you're going back later, you know what they've said and you can follow up with it.
You may hear something like, thanks for bringing that to my attention, or I'll take that under advisement, or even, I agree with you on that issue. But none of those are yes. What you have to walk away with if you're looking for it is an affirmative yes. Yes, I will support you on this issue.
It's important to listen for that commitment of support, because as soon as you get it, you can thank the legislator for it, and then you can follow up based on that.
And offer to have your Washington staff get back in touch with them to make sure that they get your name on the dotted line, they get your co-sponsorship on a bill, that the details are handled by the staff. And that's what we're here to do, and we'll take it from there.
Number 10. If your legislator disagrees with your viewpoint, don't get angry and never make a threat.
It's appropriate to express disappointment. It's appropriate to say that, you know, we have to respectfully disagree with you, Congressman. But I would never recommend getting angry about something.
You need to keep everything on a reasonable plane. You need to keep everything in a way where two-way communications exists and continues to exist. One of the most important things about visiting legislators is building a relationship that can last forever.
Number 11. Never offer an elected official anything in return for their support, and never discuss campaign finances, PAC contributions, or endorsements.
Some people wonder whether it's okay to talk about campaign contributions, either contributions that they made or contributions that they may make in the future. It's a simple answer: absolutely not.
If you go into a lobbying meeting, you can't say that you have given money, you can't say that you will give money. The issue of money should just never come up.
Keep it about public policy, not about politics, not about money, not about endorsements, not about contributions.
Number 12. Get to know key legislative staff members. They often have great influence and can be extremely helpful as a follow-up contact.
Staff can be just as important as the member. And the fact that you're dealing with staff rather than with the senator or with the congressman or congresswoman doesn't mean that you're getting short shrift. These staff people often are the technical experts that are really going to be involved in making the decision.
They're the ones who can oftentimes be just as or more influential than the member at the end of the day. So it's really important to follow up with staff. If you talk with a member, make sure you know who that staff person is and make sure to follow up with them and establish just as good of a relationship with the staff as with the member.
They act as filters. They act as people who take a wide variety of information on a particular issue. They try to distill it down to what their boss, the lawmaker, needs to see and hear.
You want to ask the staffer what the best way is to stay in touch. Some staffers prefer email, others prefer you're calling them, and others prefer faxes. So you really want to know which type of communication they prefer. You also want to continue to develop a rapport.
There you have it. 12 simple rules to keep in mind when visiting with members of Congress and state legislators. Follow them, and your visit will likely be a big success. Not only for you, for your component, and for the one AIA brand, but for the vital issues that matter most to your state and to our nation.